All right, thank you so much for staying with us. So, co-founder Budget Foundation, Mr. Seun Onigbinde, has faulted the fiscal management approach of the present administration, saying Nigeria no longer operates with a defined budget cycle, a situation he described as a gross disconnect and sign of fiscal unseriousness. According to him, the 2023 and 2023 supplementary budgets are both extended into 2024, while the 2025 budget capital components only began implementation in October, months after the president signed it into law. He noted that the government has failed to release any budget implementation reports for the first and second quarter of 2025, making it difficult to track spending or measure performance. My guest is co-founder CEO Budget, Mr. Seun Onigbinde. He joins me from the United States. Thank you so much, Mr. Onigbinde, and it's really good to have you here.
It's a pleasure being here, Toby. Thank you so much.
Yes, yeah. I'm sure that my intro hits the nail on the head. Yes, let's start with what we've been doing with our budgeting system in recent times. I know we used to have a definite budget cycle, January to December budget cycle, but now things seem to have changed. How does it come to you?
I mean, it's part of the lack of fiscal coordination that we have mentioned as one of the challenges of this administration. When this administration came up on board in 2023, they inherited the budget from the former president, Muhammadu Buhari-led administration, and they went through a supplementary budget. Then they had a 2024 budget, and they had another even revised 2024 budget. And so there was technically like 4 budgets running at once. Then later, they still now had the 2025 budget. So now the 2025 budget was signed into law by the president in the early part of the year. And for like almost 8 months, we're just hearing that the implementation of the capital budget for 2025 will resume. That means we've been spending the recurring budget, obviously, but we are not yet spending the capital budget. As of today is November 13, there is no public mention of the 2026 budget. It's not in front of the Federal Executive Council. The MTEF, which is the medium-term projection, which is supposed to be from 2026 to 2028, is not public in any way. So those are the challenges that we are currently facing, that there's a lack of fiscal coordination by the president. And our points have always been clear. If you have a budget that runs from January to December, December should be your cutoff date. You are supposed to pass a new budget, kick off a new budget. If there are items in that budget that you feel should still be executed, you show up in the National Assembly and pass a supplementary budget. You don't leave that budget open-ended because it creates a lot of fiscal distortion. And let's understand that not everything in the budget will get funded. A lot of things in the budget are frivolous. They do not add anything to national development per se. So what the federal government is doing is unhelpful. It's not helping out. It's not going to be able to drive the economic development that they want.
That was my next question. What this means for our economy? What was the impact of this, should I use the word inconsistency now, with our budgeting cycle? What does it mean for projects? What does it mean for projections of government?
It's unhealthy. Let's start from the MTEF, and I will take a few points. Let's start from the MTEF. The medium-term expenditure framework is required by even states. You know, it's not just a federal government projection. It's also a federation projection. So it's also required by states for their own planning, for the state level planning. So if you don't get a medium-term expenditure projection, then you have a problem. And now states might be taking the wrong assumptions in developing their own expenditure plans. The second problem you also find out is that the haphazard implementation of projects. One of the things we know is that most projects that get into the budget are not wired to really transform the lives of Nigerians. Most of those projects are extension of personal interest. Now, when you leave them open-ended, you are not appropriating the most efficient use of capital projects, because capital projects, you know, if you dimension it properly, are the projects that would have significant impact on the economy. And the reality is also that you are also hemorrhaging your revenue. I mean, no matter how much excited the president sounds, or maybe even the revenue agency sounds, Nigeria's revenue is still not enough to push ahead the kind of development that we want. In the last 2024 numbers that came out, federal government revenue was around 20.98 trillion. Its debt servicing was 12.48 trillion. By the time you adjust for another 6 trillion for personnel costs, and you adjust for another maybe 2 trillion for statutory transfers, which is National Assembly, NJZ, INEC, NDDC, and the rest, you practically have expended 20.98 trillion. So there's practically nothing left for capital project except you are going to borrow, which you are going to do through the deficit financing mechanism. So we are borrowing to fund capital projects that are not clearly efficient. That is a huge challenge. That is a huge problem. So the federal government has to be open-minded and understand that, well, it doesn't want to go back into the bad days, of the previous administration, where the CBN was like the piggy bank to fix those deficits. If you are going to keep piling up on Nigeria's debt through deficit financing, you have to ensure that the capital projects that they are funded, they are funding, have a significant economic development on the country, because the current revenue can barely cover your current numbers as it is right now.
I'm thinking about the coordination now between the Budget Office, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Budget and Economic Planning. What do you think is happening with regards to synergy between these three very important ministries or agencies of government?
I mean, you have made a great point deliberately, and I like that question because if you're following the news recently, I mean, you are on the news. There have been protests by local contractors in Abuja around the fact that their monies have not been paid, and some of the projects that they executed in 2024, the funds have not been paid. Secondly, you have seen some clips by National Assembly members lamenting openly that all their constituency projects for 2025, none of them has been funded. There was even a rancor in the National Assembly recently, I think House of Reps specifically, around what's the propriety of the 2026 budget if we don't have not even funded 2025 capital project. I mean, the federal government just announced that they will start implementing in October, and I can bet that possibly funds have not even been released as of now. I mean, it just clearly shows that the numbers of the federal government are still not adding up. And if numbers are not adding up for you, you are supposed to be wiser in how you structure your implementation. So the budget office might be projecting we want to spend 54 trillion naira budget, but it doesn't mean that the federal government even has 25 trillion naira in revenue. And also there's also escalating debt service costs, which also is mostly first line charge. So there has to be much more coordination around Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Budget and Planning. Those are the three core legs, of the fiscal space, and they have to talk to each other, and we have to be realistic with each other. I mean, a few people in the past, like Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, wanted she subsumed the budget office in the Ministry of Finance just because she needed much more control between planning and spending. But since we don't have that right now, and I like the current arrangement that it is, but it just means that there has to be strong interagency coordination. Let us fund the things that matter. And also to the National Assembly, I mean, if your projects are not being funded 3 months or 2 months, a few days to the end of the year, it's also a learning that, inserting item indiscriminately into the budget just to serve your own personal interest. It's not what was going to change this country. Focus on the things that matter. Focus on the things that are worth calling a federal government project, not, inserting projects to just extend your own personal interests.
Indeed, you mentioned we've seen IGR improving in recent times. We've seen non-oil sector revenues also growing. You alluded to that. And of course, oil revenue is still not doing badly. But moving forward now, revenue is very important when you talk about budget implementation too. So when we have doing pretty well on this side, what are those quick wins? What are those quick wins for government with regards to budget practical implementation of, even with the revenue available? What do you make of those quick wins for implementing that will build that trust that is needed amongst Nigerians?
I mean, we are moving to 2026, and in 2026 that we are moving to, It's also very, very clear that the budget, obviously, the tax is going to be the biggest theme in 2026, obviously. You have Mr. Taiwo Edele and the FRS chair, they've made a lot of position around the budget, around the tax, and how these new things is going to transform Nigeria's fiscal space. Also means that if you are demanding more tax from the people, you must be willing to show more transparency and elicit more trust from them. So it can't just be a deterrence measure alone. You must be able to ensure that social norms and nudges that helps people to pay taxes are also clearly evident. And the only way to make that strong is that there is a clear output from the revenues that you are getting, or a much more clearer communication. If you look at our State of State report, and I'm happy that one of my colleagues has been on your platform, it was clear that states are awash with cash now. We moved from states having 5.4 trillion naira to 11 trillion naira in the budget. So we moved, the revenue at the federal government level has significantly increased, has significantly grown. And if the revenue of state had grown, which means that expenditure has also grown. It means that state government should show up more for the citizens. They should pay better salaries. They should deliver stronger capital projects. They should not use the opportunities to aggrandize and buy another latest Lexus Jeep or distribute another round of cars to traditional rulers. Let there be projects that sound meaningful and impactful on the people. Those are the things that we want to see. Without fiscal discipline, greater revenue outcomes mean nothing. So it's also very important that the states and the federal government understand that in this non-oil tax-driven economy or fiscal space that we are moving to, there's a significant need for community feedback, for trust, and also for strengthening public institutions. So I think without that, you will not be able to achieve much. Whatever we're going to get is still going to be highly suboptimal.
In a few weeks, we'll be in December, and naturally, we should have been hearing about the 2026 budget. But like you alluded to, we are yet to 2025 budget. I think implementation started around October, and we are looking at 2026 budget. Now, in your understanding, what should we now expect for 2026 budgeting process?
I mean, for 2026 budget, I think number one is that the geopolitics, the global politics, with the uncertainty in the U.S. midterm elections next year, we don't know what that would swing around when you look at the oil markets. So that's also going to be a key point in how we look at things. The second one is the tax reforms are coming on board. Those tax bills seems like the federal government wealth on what I would call self-immolation. They decide to bond themselves because they considered a lot of support to states when you look into that 2020, into those tax bills. VAT, there are significant changes to the VAT. There are things like the electronic management transfer levy that has been connected by states. So those are the things involved in place.
It's understandable, I guess you. Oh my goodness. All right, then we'll try to still get Shewonigide back in for us to wrap this discussion up there. But very important discussion, honestly, I must say, as we look ahead to a budgetary process for a new year, a lot of expectations. So, Mr. Onigbide, I see you're very busy over there. You have a lot.
It's the kids that have to go to school.
It's understandable, please. Let's just wrap up your point.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the geopolitics of oil, and you look at the non-oil revenues, you look at those two things, obviously, you will see that there are significant changes that would happen in the 2026 budget.
All right.
The 2026 budget is going to go through those changes. The other thing also you want to see is the fact that expenditure-wise, with the federal government start rationalizing expenditure, considering that you have a 2025 budget that you have largely not expended. So if you don't see a significant 2026 capital budget, it might be very, very realistic. We also know that the elections are going to happen in 2027. So if you look at the 2026 budget, that's like technically the last budget of this administration. I mean, obviously, we don't know where the electorate will swing in 2027. It also means that so many things might become very political in terms of the items that get into the 2026 budget. So you might see a lot of what you call clientelism, distributing projects at the very individual level. Those are the kind of risk that you see in the 2026 budget. It's going to be a very political budget, but it also has to come in fact that we have not done great with 2025 budget. And with the way this administration is going, it means that we would extend implementation of the 2025 budget to December next year. So those are the kind of factors that we have to put in place. The other challenge is also debt servicing. We have some significant payments that are due next year. So you expect that debt servicing that is around 12 trillion naira today is still likely going to spike and might get up to 16 trillion. That's a real deal big problem for us as a country. So when you put it all together, you know that 2026 budget would come with its own flavor. It might not be too palatable for Nigerians, but it's not just about bringing a budget out. It's about ensuring that budgets deliver impact in the lives of the people. So much trillions have been promised, so much trillions have been spent. Nigerians just want to see the quality of service all around. I think that is the pressure the government is on right now.
Co-founder, CEO, Budget, Mr. Olusegun Onigbinde, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate this as always.
Thank you so much. My apologies for all the challenges. It's
understandable. Thank you so much. Say hi to them. Say hi to them. Say we are greeting them here from Nigeria.
All right. Thanks.
All right, then. See you soon. Well, it's